What I would like to say or begin with is digital tools right from the onset are support. They're not the center stage, or they're not the main thing.
Welcome to the Ground Investigation podcast. The ground beneath our feet is shifting technologically. Is geotech truly evolving, or are we clinging to old methods? We're unpacking our profession's future, diving into the digital revolution. This conversation impacts your career, so stay tuned. Joining me is Dr. Amit Gajurel, who is a PE licensed in the state of Texas. Many know Amit from his work at Terracon and ACOM and his PhD research at Texas A&M, focusing on infrastructure monitoring, remote sensing, and machine learning. Amit, your career spans practical realities and digital innovation. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
More than welcome. So our industry prides itself on conservatism. With advancements in AI, remote sensing, and data analytics, areas you've explored, is this conservatism a strength or an impediment?
That's a great question. First of all, I would like to begin by saying the thoughts that we express here are my own, and it's not an engineering judgment or recommendations on. It does not reflect the view of my company. It's just me personally. So regarding that question, what I would say is it's not cut and dry, whether it's an impediment or a feature. The good thing about being conservative is it addresses the uncertainty that we have in our field. It's not easy to quantify stuff. And because of that, the structures are less likely to fail, and also is in compliance with the state and the federal codes. And the long-term performance of these structures are almost seen in practical life. So that's one advantage of conservatism. And we've seen a lot of infrastructure they live past their design life as well. So that's one good thing about it. But there are some impediments. So we over design, and the cost is pretty high, as well as it stifles digital innovation. So if we do a lot of this conservatism or stick to it, that's a little bit hard. And the data that we generate is underutilized because of a lot of this conservatism. This always should be, so the word that I like to use is calibrated conservatism is what we should use. That means we should balance conservatism when with or and leverage data. Something that's aligns very well with the Bayesian way of thinking. So I am a big Bayesian fan, and I started listening to Bayesian statistics or following that world by listening to a podcast from Alex Andorra. That's a big shout out to him. He's a great guy. If you're interested in Bayesian thinking or want to just get started with it, you can probably have that on your show notes on Bayesian thinking. And in geotechnical engineering, I think that's a great approach to look at the problem, where you use conservatism when there's uncertainty, or the uncertainty in your domain is high, but you also leverage data and experience when it's available. So you update your thinking based on data or the stages of project. I think that would be a good way to go. And that's how I would like to approach between these topics.
Okay, that's a really good answer. So your publications include machine learning for soil stabilization, yet many foundational assessments still use old methods. What causes this inertia? Is it technological concern or cultural resistance?
I think the newer technologies do provide a different perspective to our traditional problem. But what we have to understand is our field is not totally data driven. So we have a lot of mechanistic models and a fair share of conservatism in our way of working. The reason I see where the resistance is where who takes the responsibility and the ownership and the risk. Because when we use these new technologies, some of them didn't have a well-established background, and they are a little bit more site-specific, and some of the people or vendors are overselling these technologies as well. So when you take all this into account and look at the legal aspect of these things, I see a lot of people are, okay, should we use this? Or what's the risk exposure to us on using this? So having these, I mean, the one way to approach this or to tackle this problem is to codify stuff like this. Like, for example, have these kind of things in state or the federal codes so that the risks are shared between different stakeholders. I think that would be something we could do about this problem.
Excellent. Okay, so to our viewers and listeners who can comment or using the platforms which can, what's preventing your projects from embracing advanced digital tools like AI or remote sensing? Share in the comments. So you've worked with traditional site investigation and modern drone INSAR data. Is a gap forming where experienced pros are skeptical of shortcuts while newer pros apply tools without deep traditional understanding? And how do we bridge it? Is it time? Is it inevitable?
I mean, I tend to agree with your statement that there is a gap between the experienced pros and the new pros in our world. But I don't see, in my opinion, that the gap is increasing, but I would say the gap is decreasing because most of these experienced pros, when they entered into the practice, they did not have access to these kind of technologies. But what they have done, from my experience working with a lot of them, is they are willing to accept or willing to listen to neo pros on these technologies, but they still are more concerned about some of the valid concerns we talked about is the legal aspects of these things is because they have seen lawsuits, they have seen different challenges that come up in a project, and that's where their the skepticism is from is that point of view. So I totally agree or support their perspective as well. But what we can do to better this or bridge this gap is definitely education and upskilling. So having these newer pros and the experienced pros work together and learn together. Also, a case study. So what I have seen, what moves the needle with these guys is case studies. So if you have a proven thing that's out there using these kind of technologies, they're more inclined to listen to you. And definitely including these kind of technologies in standards like codes or standard practices. So I think those things would definitely help bridge gap between the pros.
Struggling to find top geotechnical and geoenvironmental talent? You could use a generalist recruiter, or you could use a specialist. At Geo Expert Search, we place experts where they belong. Across the UK, USA, Australia, and New Zealand. No highways, no bridges, no structures. Just geotechnical and geoenvironmental. Now and forever. Geo Expert Search. Finding the right people for the right roles with no wasted time. Visit geoexpertsearch.com to learn more.
We're saying about the difference between kind of the more experienced and less experienced. Do you think it's a case of the more experience has to be brought up to date more so with the new technology, or is it vice versa? And actually it's the newer people in the industry that have to be shown actually that we've been doing this a certain way for a long time. It's actually been working quite well. So we can't go full, all out on just this thing, just because it's perhaps shiny and new.
Right. I would say there's a middle ground there because, like I said, for experienced pros, they have this vast knowledge. They have worked in this field for quite a long time and they know what could come up. But what they have not seen is what these technologies can do on the other end. So having these two guys meet up at one single common place would be best. So for a consultant or a project manager, having a person with a really good amount of experience and a new pro who's good in these kind of technologies, but haven't had a chance to work 20 years coming together and developing a product that integrates both of them, I think that would be a gold standard product.
I would agree. So you kind of utilize, and everyone has their own kind of skill set and experience, utilizing it for the overall project, the overall team and service provided. So you've used complex software like Praxis and Python. As we move towards more automated data analysis and AI-driven design, what are the ethical boundaries? Should relying too heavily on algorithms dilute human judgment, our bedrock, or is it an outdated concern?
Right. I mean, I would like to say, AI has definitely taken over a lot of aspects of our life, and I believe it's here to stay for a long time. But what I would say is, AI is really good in recognizing patterns, but a human should be the one to make final decisions. It should not be the AI who decides on your project. And it can supplement the human confidence in decision making. It can help you quantify uncertainties, but the humans should be the one at the end who makes the decision, because that he or she is the human is responsible for taking the time, and will ultimately be responsible for that action. So I think we should use AI as a supplemental tool, not the one who's going to take over the design.
Yeah, so I suppose the human has the engineering judgment. They have to sign off, take accountability. Things can go wrong and have done historically, of course. And people will look for someone to blame, and it's tricky to blame an AI program, or certainly longer-winded to do so. And this is a bit of a side question, but do you foresee that changing in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
That's a great question. It's hard to tell what's going to happen with the rate of development. We could have never thought we would be here 5 years ago.
Yeah.
What happened in the last 5 years is unthinkable in terms of AI and how it's being adopted in every single field. But what we could just do is make a projection based on what we know as of today. What I think is we will have AI a lot more involved in design, and it will really improve our efficiency. But the gut check or the field check or just the check that a human has to do on the designers, that just makes sense. Like, is it looking at same references should be of a concern. One thing that we have to keep in mind is these AI tools or machine learning tools are biased. So you have to realize which data it was trained on or what kind of things it has seen before, because most of the prediction would be based on their past data. So, for example, if you have trained your model in one kind of soil or one kind of design that is only applicable to a small geological formation, you try to apply that to across the country, you might not get a good result, even like decrease in efficiency, what I would say. So, the people or the person using that AI should be very mindful of how it was created and what's the background and how we are implementing that in the real world.
Great point, actually, in terms of what you train it on and potential and realistic biases of which it would hold at the time. What ethical challenges do you foresee as AI and advanced analytics become central to geotech? Leave your insights in the comments if you can. We would like your take on the matter. So before your PhD, you were a civil engineer involved in geotechnical analysis and design. This is the demanding reality of our profession. The showcase and show digital tools online shadow the fundamental engineering rigor that ensures safety. Is there a disconnect between the polished online image and the challenging daily realities?
Right. Thank you for having that question. That's something that's not a lot of people do not print that picture of our field. It is really challenging and interesting as well at the same time. So what I would like to say or begin with is digital tools right from the onset are support. They're not the center stage, or they're not the main thing. They do have increased efficiency in terms of cost as well as schedule, but they are not replacement for fundamental engineering tests and analysis. So let me give you an example of a hypothetical case. So you have an alignment, a transportation alignment for a road or a highway or a rail. And the first thing that you want to do is go there and do a reconnaissance of that area. So the remote sensing today has reached to a point where you could do that right by sitting on your computer. You don't even have to go to the field in the recognition phase, or you could get 90% of your data just by sitting in your computer. But that does not mean that you're not going to the field and doing borings. So the use of technologies like INSAR, drones would help you do your job safely, which is one of the biggest things that we have to be careful about is make sure we come home once we go to work. And I think technologies like INSAR would help you do that. The technologies like drones, mapping, real-time data would help you do that. So, but that does not mean we're replacing borings. We will do borings. We will do all the traditional tests we've been doing, but in a more efficient way. Just on that topic, what I would like to say is, so I go to conferences quite often and I hear this word saying, you only enter data once. So that's something that's happening. So what the technologies that we're using right now is we want to make sure we are just inputting data once after we collect from the field. After that, everything is digitalized and you can just pull your data, do your analysis and whatever you want to do with that data. So that is something that I think where technology meets the traditional world. And here I would just like to give a shout out to Scott Deaton. I've met him in every single geotechnical conference I've been to since 2017. He's a big proponent of using data and using data in such a way that we do it efficiently. And I've been a big fan of him and he's doing a great work. So yeah, just on your question, I think that's how we should think about it is there is definitely rigor. Our profession, we are always the first one to be in the field in any project that's out there. So it is definitely more like you're pretty much a trailblazer for a project. You are doing that. But yeah, we're just using these tools or these technologies as a support to increase to do the work safely, more efficiently, and yeah, and saving cost and time.
Great. So this is kind of a question for the audience now, and those kind of in the trenches. What's one critical and glamorous aspect of geotech severely underrated or misunderstood? So let us know in the comments. Feel free to get in touch via LinkedIn or any other platform. So your background includes extensive research and teaching. Are we adequately preparing new engineers for the dual world of soil mechanics and data science? What's one core skill or mindset crucial for the next generation that is being currently overlooked?
I think we're doing a good job right now preparing for the next generation. I believe in the US, I think a lot of civil engineers have realized getting a degree beyond a bachelor's degree would give you an edge and a good understanding of your field. So I see a lot of my colleagues with a master's degree in the field of their interests. Some some in geotechnical engineering, some structural engineering. Deep down, what I feel like is probability and statistics are one of the major things that we, especially as a geotechnical engineers, should really understand and take it to your heart. Because most of the things that we do today have one way or the other relates to statistics and probability. I'm a big physics nerd. What I would say is, I mean, this is something that I always have in back of my mind is physics describes the truth, and math is the language to understand it. So that's based on all Galileo and Albert Einstein all combined. I mean, I like to just look at what they say, but this is something that drives me every day. So I think that's what we should understand. And one thing that I always tell people that close to me or the students that I guided on my way is soil is a multi-physics problem. It's not just one single thing. So when we learn soil mechanics, we might just be concerned about the mechanical property of it, or just the hydraulic property of it, depending on your discipline, or just the thermal property of it, if you're in some other discipline. But this, if you really want to understand soil, it's a multi-physics problem. So always understand the limitations when you are using only one physics. It might be you might be 99% correct if your soil experience only stresses, mechanical stresses, but always keep that in the mind. Keep that in mind on the back of your head is this is not just one single physics problem. So that's what I like to say to the next generation of geotechnical engineers is soil is a complex problem. Just understand your limitations and write it down when you write a report is this is my assumption, these are the limitations, and this is how it's going to work.
Excellent. That's another great response. So you've researched optimizing soil stabilization with machine learning. Do you foresee firms that don't fully integrate advanced analytics and remote sensing capabilities losing their competitive edge? Could refusing to adapt push them towards obsolescence?
I think that's a hard statement to make based on what we have seen today or the data that we have today. But What I would say is it definitely depends on the size of the firm as well as the size of the project you're working on. If you're working on a small scale project where the impact of improving efficiency by 5% or 2% is not big of an outcome, while you have a good amount of risk you're taking when you're implementing these technologies, these might not be something that you'd be willing to do. But if you're working on bigger projects, if you have the technologies or if you have the resources to implement these newer technologies or bring it to your project, I think that has big advantages and would definitely give you an edge. For example, you can optimize your design. You could get a better risk assessment. Like the hypothetical example we were talking about previously is an alignment. If you use NSAR or drone, you could see which side of the mountains is going to fail, or is it likely to fail, or have we seen anything like that in the past? So things like this, like when the project scale is huge, the firm or first people, a group of people using these new technologies would definitely have an edge.
So in the introduction, we read out, of course, you'll have a PhD, you have a PE licensure in Texas as well. I just wondered if you can just speak a little bit about the importance of having a PE license.
I think that's something I would encourage every single person graduating to aspire for getting a PE and take your exam as soon as you can. So this would not only give you like a respect among your peers, but it'll open doors for you. It will create a value for you. It'll show you that you have technical expertise as well as your colleagues that you work with believe in the work that you do. So these things would really help you progress in your career. And one thing the PE would give you is access to help you network with a lot more people in conferences and venues like this. Also, while you're preparing for your PE, the references or the lists that you go through would help you broaden your horizon as well. So you get to know there's so many codes out there. There's so many important stuff that's out there. So because those things are not taught, the university does not have bandwidth to teach you all of that in that short amount of time. So while you are preparing for PE, you're actually learning quite a bit more. So I think that's a very fruitful experience that you would have. And I would recommend everyone to take that.
What I found personally, and obviously I'm based in the UK and we kind of have a chartered status here, as opposed to the PE. But what I've found so far working with clients in America is they really want, qualified, whether it's geotechnical engineers or whoever else, for multiple reasons. One, they can sign projects off. They can perhaps teach a little more because they have their PE, not always, of course, kind of provision of services as well for their actual clients. But another thing I've noticed when headhunting for these companies is how few people seem to have the PE, even when you can it depends on what state, and there's all different ways of doing it, isn't there? So you can go to one state and it's quicker because they utilize your college duration as part of it. But you have people with, so many years of experience and they just don't have PE license. So maybe that's a deliberate choice. We don't want to be PE licensed because I don't want the responsibility of signing things off or somewhere in between. But it's quite interesting to see anyway.
Now yeah, that's surprisingly though. I think I agree with you on that amount of civil engineering graduates versus civil engineering PhD. It's a fraction of those,
Ugh.
and yeah, it's definitely. I think the recent change in the curriculum has really helped. I don't know if I don't know if your viewers are aware of this, but since April of 2024, most of the PE exam are discipline focused now. So if you're a geotechnical engineer and that's what you want to do, you could take the geotechnical PE. So most of your questions, almost all your questions are geotechnical, unlike what it used to be in the past is your morning session was all general engineering and your evening session was just your discipline specific. Now, since April of 2024, that has changed. Maybe that's the reason we've seen uptake in the amount of PEs in the last year, so which is a good news. So a lot of more people are taking PEs, and we're getting a lot more PEs now. So I think that's a great news. But yeah, I'll definitely encourage people to take the PE, especially if you worked in the field for more than 5 years. Especially, I mean, I could talk about geotech. I think it should not be that far of a stretch to take that.
Yeah, brilliant. That's a good comments there. So, all right, this is a chance to speak your mind now. What's one widely held belief or practice in geotech you think is flawed or outdated? Challenge the status quo. Tell us in the comments if you've chosen the platform has the ability to comment on. Now, right, Amit, we're going to go on to a kind of a rapid fire part of the podcast now. Something new, something we've tried before, and we're going to give it another go now. So let's wrap up with a quick provocative hot takes. Viewers and listeners, if you can follow along and comment with your chosen platform, please do get involved. Mitz, what's your immediate thoughts on these? So if we try and keep it kind of short and punchy responses to each, which sometimes is easy to say and harder to do.
Okay.
Traditional geotechnical reports will diminish as remote sensing becomes more prevalent. True or false?
I would say somewhere in the middle, because I would just remove the word traditional, but geotechnical reports and would definitely include remote sensing in the future.
Okay. Every geotechnical engineer graduating today should be proficient in Python. Agree or disagree?
I would say disagree, because you should not, I mean, there's no any specific language that you need to know because of the invent of AI, which can do it for you, but you have to have that thinking of how to programmatically think about the problem and solve it. I think that's something that you have to graduate, or something that you have to develop, is not a specific language, but how to think about problem and how to codify it so that you can use tools like ChatGPT or any other generative AI to develop a code.
Okay. Academic research in geotech is often far too removed from practical industry needs. Fact or fiction?
In terms of geotechnical, I would say it's fiction. I think we are the closest discipline in civil engineering where research is very close to practice. And I think the research in geotechnical pretty much was born out of practice, the problems that were faced in the practice. So I believe we are the closest to the practice, and there's still a lot of for improvement, but still, that's what I believe.
Professional certifications like PE are less relevant than demonstrated digital skills. Agree or disagree?
I disagree. You have professional engineering certification is definitely very valuable in addition to digital skills. If you have a PE with digital skills, I think you would definitely be irreversible.
Yeah, like we said earlier on, kind of combine both spells. This has been an insightful and challenging discussion. Your navigation and soil mechanics fundamentals, cutting-edge data science offers vital perspective. Thank you very much for your candor. It's a very interesting podcast, and your work is highly impactful. Where can people connect with you and follow your contributions?
I think the best way to reach out or to connect with me would be LinkedIn for sure. And I also have my own podcast on the geotechnical experience. So, but I've been a little bit slacking behind. I started from a different perspective. You guys could follow me on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, whichever platform you use. I also run a Discord channel. I've been a little bit busy and not being able to follow up with that, but everything is in my LinkedIn. So if you follow the description on my LinkedIn, you would be able to reach out to me and connect with me in any platform of your choice.
Excellent. We'll go and check out Amit's podcast and Discord. So that concludes another Ground Investigation podcast episode. If this conversation sparked a thought, then we've done our job right. The ground beneath us is changing, and so must we. Continue this vital debate in the comments if you can. Your insights matter. If you find value, hit like, subscribe, and enable notifications or equivalent on your chosen platform. We're committed to more compelling conversations. Check out our existing episodes. But until next time, keep digging, questioning, and innovating. Amit, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Michael.